there, my name is Kelly Dell and I'm owner of Off the Beaded Path located in Forest City, North Carolina. For today's video, I'm going to test your knowledge as a beader a little bit and to test your skills. We're going to be working on a pair of hoop earrings. I call these the lovely Laurie hoop earrings. They were named after one of my favorite people in the whole world. Her name's Laurie Biggerstaff, and every time she comes into the store, she's so happy and so bubbly that you can't help but, get happy when you're around her. So, these earrings are all crystal earrings. They're really sparkly, and I just thought of her when I was designing these. So they're called the Lovely Laurie Hoops, and basically they are a really pretty simple pair of crystal hoops. This color here is the turquoise double AB. It's a Swarovski. This is the jet double AB in the Swarovski, which is a little blurry, and then the color I'm going to use today is the Siam double AB. As you can see, they are on wire. We are actually going to stitch them. I've got two versions of this. For this video, I'm going to show you how to do cubic right angle weave. Instead of doing a cube, we're going to do a triangle shape for these earrings. But it's going to be a three-dimensional right angle weave. If you do not understand the video, the pattern I wrote was for flat right angle weave, where you basically weave two rows and then connect the first and second row to make your third row. So if you don't understand or you can't understand how to do the cubic right angle weave that I'm going to try to explain to you today, then you may want to take a look at the pattern which is listed on our Etsy site. Like I said, it's written in flat right angle weave, not the cubic, okay? So I'm going to try to go slow so you can see exactly what I'm doing and how it's being done. So if you get frustrated, just go back to the start and try again, because like I said, I'm going to try to explain it just as good as I can. So I hope I do a good job for you guys. Basically what you're going to need for the project is you're going to need 200 3mm Bicone crystals. I've got 4 color kits this week. 2 are the Swarovski kits and 2 are Thunder Polish kits. The Thunder Polish are cheaper, but you do need to pay attention to the kind of crystals you use, because depending on the kind of crystal you use will depend on how well it's going to shape into the hoop. I've made both kinds and give all of them as Christmas gifts this year, and people loved them, whichever color they were, it didn't matter. But the biggest thing to understand, when you stitch together your actual tube that we're going to do here, what's going to happen is if you use a Swarovski, your tube is going to be nice and tight. Either a Swarovski or a Preciosa crystal. Your tube is going to be nice and tight, and it's going to hold its shape better when you actually put it on the pin. This is a 3-inch head pin, okay? So it's going to stay a lot better on the head pin if you use the Swarovski or the Preciosa. The Thunder Polish is going to make a slightly looser tube, which is still okay. It'll go on the pin a lot easier than what it will if you're using a Swarovski or a Thunder Polish. The only thing is you'll have to add some dabs of glue to the actual pin to make it stay in place, your tube. And you'll see kind of things, little tips and tricks I'll show you along the way to kind of do these. So you'll need the 180 3mm Bicones. You're going to need 2 3-inch head pins. I'm going to use just a standard head pin, but it's just a 3-inch pin in length. This will work when you're making this size hoop. If I actually put it up to my ear, you can kind of see how big it is. It's not too big. You can make these smaller. You can make them much smaller if you want to. I gave a couple of pairs away. These are 16 units big. I did some that were 12 units big, and they turned out really cute. A lot smaller hoops for people who may like smaller things. You're going to need a size 10 or 12 needle, doesn't matter which. You're going to need you can use crystals, you can use a daisy spacer, you can use a 4mm or 3mm round, but you're going to need a little bead to go here on the very end, just as a decoration, and then you're going to need a little bead to go here at the top. So either a daisy spacer, a round bead, kind of whatever you want to use. I like to use the clear rubber ear backs on these, so you're going to need a pair of those. You're going to need some glue. I like to use this Zap-A-Gap glue. We sell a bottle of this for $6.50. The reason I like this glue, it's very hard to dry out. It has two caps. It has the top cap, you pull it off, and then it has this cap. It is much better because it won't dry out as quickly and you can use it for a good while. It also dries really quickly. The only thing is it only takes a dab, a very small dab of this, because if you get it on your crystals, especially some of your darker color crystals like this, if you actually put some, get it on a crystal, it's going to turn the crystal, the outside of the crystal, like a milky white color. It's not going to be very pretty. So it just takes, when I say a pinhead drop, I literally mean just a little tiny bit. The only other thing you're going to need is some 1 gram of size 11 seed beads, and these seed beads are just going to go right here along the very front of the earring. So if you have little extras left over, those work out really well. And the only other thing I want to talk to you about is the thread that you'll use. Normally I will use the 6-pound thread, and the 6-pound thread does work. I stitched this one and this one with a 6-pound thread. They work fantastic. Fantastic. I used the 8-pound thread to do this one with. This one came out a lot stiffer, and so you may want to play when you make your first one with a 6-pound thread. The next pair you make, you may want to try using an 8-pound thread just to see the difference. This one turned out much stiffer. It was harder to get it actually on the pin, but it's holding its shape as far as a hoop shape 100% better. So you may want to think about that when you actually get started. But let's go ahead, get your materials together, and then we'll get started. You want to go ahead and start out with a needle on one end of about 1.5 yards of your Fireline, whether you choose 6 or 8 pound. Okay, so here's an up close, better view of what you'll actually be making today. As you can see, it has 3 sides. It has a back side, and then it comes to a point here on the front side, so your second and your third side. So, to get started, you've got your needle and your 3mm, and you want to pick up 4 3mm. You're going to let those drop down. Leave just a small tail and tie those beads into a circle. So that when you finish, you'll have a small circle of beads just like this. I'm going to take the needle and I'm going to come through two, two beads next to the knot. So I'm going to go through, my knot is here, I'm going to go through this bead and this bead. And don't worry about that tail because we are fixing to cut that tail off here in just a few minutes. Alright, so I have my tail thread up here at the top. I have my working thread here at the bottom. This is my first box of my first unit. Each unit consists of 4 beads. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, this is my first bead of my next unit. I said each unit consists of 4 beads, so I need to pick up 3 more to have a total of 4 beads. My thread is coming out of the bottom. I'm going to come back around to make a circle. So that it looks just like this. Unit 1, Unit 2. On Unit 2, I'm going to go through 2 beads that I just added. So 1 and 2. So at this point, this is what you should have. Now, what I like to do before I start the third unit or my connection unit is I'll actually flip it so that my tail and my working thread are both in a downward position. And the only reason I do this is just so that my tail is kind of out of my way and it's not sticking up here like this as I'm trying to work. Now, I'm going to take the piece and I'm going to fold it so that you see my end bead of my second box and the end bead of my first box. Remember, each box consists of 4 beads. I have 2. 1, 2 of my first box. I'm going to pick up one 3mm. I'm coming out of this bead here. I'm going to come directly across to this bead and I'm going to go straight up through that one bead and pull through. So that now I have 1, 2, and then my third bead here that I just added. Turn my light on here. There we go. I don't know if that's going to help. Nope, I don't think that's going to help. Okay. I'm going to pick up one bead. Thread is coming out of the top here of my end bead. I've picked up one bead and I'm going to come straight down through the end bead of my second unit. So I have my second unit, the bead I just added, my first unit, and now I'm picking up one bead, and so this will make 4 beads of the first box. So that now I have 1, 2, 3, 4 beads. 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright. If you tilted up your work up this way, you'll see you should have a diamond shape of 1, 2, 3 beads. And that's exactly what you want. So we're going to go ahead and get in position. We want to be coming out here on top. We're going to work boxes. This is our first unit. So I'm going to come through the bead that I had just added in the previous step. Up through the first, or my end bead of box 1. And I tilt it like this so that I can see my triangle, 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to come through one bead. And then the very next bead. Just like this. So that you have your first box and you're coming out of the top bead of your little triangle. Your tail is here at the bottom. You're working here along the top. So to show you again real quick what we just did is we first did a box of 4. We went through our beads to exit out of this bead here. This was box 1. We then added 3 beads. 1, 2, 3. And we come back down through the same bead we just added. We folded the piece together so that this bead here and this bead here were laying side by side. So at that point, when you look at it, you have 2 beads laying side by side. This was box 2. This was box 1. Our thread was coming out of the bottom of this first box, or this first bead here. So we picked up one bead and went up through the bead in box 1. We picked up another bead and went down through the bead in box 2, so that when we looked at the side view, you had your completed box. So you had box 1, box 2, and when you folded it together, that made box 3. When you look at the top of your piece, you should have a triangle shape of beads on your top view. At this point, we're coming out of the top bead here in this direction. So again, these are our top 3 beads of our first component box. We're finished. This was our first box, and now on top of this, we're going to work box 2. We're coming out of our bead. Remember, each box consists of 4 beads. I'm coming out of 1, so that will be my first bead, and I'm going to pick up 3 more so that it makes a box of 4. I'm going to come back around to the same bead I'm coming out of to make my circle. And I'm going to come up through the very first bead that I just added. I'm ready for my next box. If I look to the side here, I have the bead I'm coming out of, and then I have the second bead in my little triangle. That's 2 beads. I said it takes 4 beads to make a box, so I'm going to pick up 2 beads. Coming out of the bead that I just added, I'm going to come to the next bead in my little triangle here, and I'm going to come back through that bead, going back towards the beads I just added. So I'm going back through that bead, and then I'm going to go straight up through the bead that I'm coming out of. And pull. When you pull, hold it to the side. You now have another box of 4. Looking at it straightway like this, again, we have our 2 beads here to the side that we need to finish out our box with. So I'm going to come through the bead to the left of where my thread is exiting. And then I have my bead from box 1, my bead from box 2, and then I already have my bead down here at the bottom. This is my 3rd bead of the triangle. So I'm going to come down through the bead in box 1, the 3rd bead of my triangle, and then the bead in box 2. So I'm going to go through 2 beads, so the bead in box 1 and the 3rd bead of my triangle. And then up through the bead here in box 2. I'm going to pick up 1 bead, coming out of the bead here in box 2. I'm going to come right to the bead here in box 1, and I'm going to go straight down through it so that I'll have my 4 bead box. Now you have your box of 4. If you turn it up like this, you have your triangle of 3 on the top, and you know you've done your next component right. So to get into position, I'm going to come through the 3rd bead of my triangle here, through the bead in box 2. So let's go ahead and go through those. So 1, 2, and then from there, I'm going to go through 2 beads of my triangle. So I'm going to go through this bead and this bead. So from where my thread is coming out, I'm going to go through the bead to the left here, and then through the very next bead on the top. I do this because I like to always come out of the same bead every time when I start to work on the next component. So I have my triangle of 3, and then I have 2 sets of boxes. So it looks just like this. If you want to, you can go ahead and cut that tail off, but that's not, you don't have to, but you can definitely do that at this point. Okay, my thread's coming out to the right here. I've got 1 bead for my box, so I'm going to pick up 3 beads. I'm going to come back around through the same bead I'm coming out of to make my circle and pull. To get into position for the next box, I'm going to go straight up through the first bead that I just added in this set. For my next box, if I turn it to the side here, I have 1 bead and 2 beads. Each box consists of 4, so I'm going to pick up 2 beads. My triangle of 3, if you lay this down flat, my triangle of 3 is still here, 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to come to that next bead in my triangle, and I'm going to take my needle and go back through it, going back towards the beads that I just added. So I'm going through that bead and the bead that my thread is currently coming out of. So this one and this one. Pull that on through. So that when you pull it and you turn it to the side, you see your box of 4. If I get my thread out of the way, you see your box of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I'm going to turn it back to the front here. As you see where I'm coming out, I'm going to go through the bead to the left of where my thread is coming out. So now I'm ready for my next box. As you can see, I have my bead from box 1, my bead from box 2, and then I have the 3rd bead here of my triangle, my base triangle. So to get into position to start the box, I'm going to go through bead 1, bead 2, and bead 3. So not picking up anything, I'm just going to go through these 3 beads here. Pick up 1 bead. I've got to finish out my box. So to do that, I'm coming out of the bead from box 2. I'm going to come right here to the bead from box 1, and I'm going to go straight down through that 1 bead. So that when you pull it, that new bead now sits into position to where you have 1, 2, 3, and 4. If you turn it up on the top like this, you have 1, 2, 3. That's exactly what you want. So to get into position to start the next component box, I'm going to go through my 3rd bead here, through the bead from box 2. So let's go ahead and do that. And then from where my thread is exiting, I'm going to go through 2 beads. I'm going to go through the bead to the left and then the very next one. So 1 and 2. So that now, when you look at it like this, you have your triangle of 3, and each side has its box of 4. Alright, one more time. my thread is coming out of this top bead out to the right. I'm going to pick up 3 beads so that I now have a box of 4. I'm going to come back around to make my circle. Go through that 1 bead there. I'm going to come up through the very first bead of that set of 3 that I just added. If I turn it to the side here, I have the first bead and the second bead. So I need 2 more beads to make up my box. If I lay down those 3 beads that I just added, you still have your triangle of 3 here on the base. So I'm going to come to the next bead in my base, and I'm going to come back through that 1 bead going towards the beads I just added, and then through the bead I'm currently coming out of. Pull that through so that now when you turn it to the side, you have your box of 4. From where my thread is coming out, I'm going to go through the bead to the left. And I'm ready to complete the 3rd box. So I've got to go down through the bead from box 1, the 3rd bead of my triangle, and the bead from box 2. So down through I'm going to pick up 1 bead. My thread is coming out of the bead from box 2. I'm going to come to this bead here on box 1, and I'm going to go straight down through just that 1 bead. So that now I have my box of 4. I'm going to go through the 3rd bead of the triangle and through the bead from box 2. From where my thread is exiting, I'm going to go through the bead to the left, and then the very next bead of the triangle. So that now you have your triangle and you have your 3 sides. You want to continue in this pattern until when you count your beads, when you tilt it here to the side and you see these side beads here, you want a total of 16 of these beads. So continue until you have 16 sets of beads. When you get your tube done, this is what it should look like. My thread is coming out of the top, and I have trimmed the tail off the bottom. Now, this is where you're going to need your head pin. Got my 3-inch head pin here, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to thread on 1 3mm bicone. Now, you can put on a daisy spacer, you can put on a round bead, whatever you want, but you're just going to put on 1. And starting at the bottom where my tail was at, I'm going to insert the head pin into the tube. Now, you have to be very, what's the word I'm looking for? Very patient with this part, and just kind of start rolling the tube onto the head pin. Be careful because it will start to bend. I sometimes like to use my flat nose pliers to hold on to the work while I twist the tube into its place. Now, if you're using the Thunder Polish crystals, you won't have to worry about this because it'll slide on pretty easy. But just be careful. You don't want to bend that head pin too much. So, I'm looking to see where my pin's at. My top of my pin is right here right now. So I'm just going to keep twisting and trying to work the pin through here. And once it kind of gets, you get it to the top there, you'll have a much easier time. Almost there. Just keep rolling. Just be patient with it. Once it starts to peek through at the top, you can grab a hold with your pliers and it's much easier. I can see you can barely see right in the center, the very tip of the head pin. So just keep twisting and working, and when it's out just enough where you can grab it, go ahead and grab it, and you'll be able to pull the tube down the rest of the way onto the pin. Just like this. Now, this is the hard part. You're going to take the pin and you want to shape it. So you're just basically going to start shaping it, and you want the pin shaped to kind of touch the bottom like that. And basically what I do is I do one and I find a shape I'm happy with, and then I'll check and see if I'm kind of shaped, and I am pretty much shaped exactly the same way. Maybe the bottom of this just needs to come up just a little. Alright, so it's on there, it's shaped, but you have to have the open space along the front of the earring so that you can put your seed beads. So I don't have that right now, so I'm just going to twist it along the top of the pin so that you see the holes. And just make sure it's all the way around like that. If you have to reshape it again, you can reshape it again. But you're going to stitch your thread. Move my plier out of the way here. Stitch your thread to where you're coming out of the first bead here on the center at the top. And this is where you're going to need your size 11 seed beads. So you're going to pick up one seed bead and go straight down through the very next bead in that row. So that when you pull, that seed bead is popped into place and you no longer see that ugly space there. Pick up a seed bead, go down through the very next bead in the row, and you're going to do this the whole way down the row. Pick up one seed bead, go through the very next bead, have 3 added, and you just continue down the row. Once you've added your beads all the way down the center row, when you get to the bottom, then all you have to do is do a couple of half-hitch knots. So go under the thread between the 2 beads that you're exiting out next to. Leave yourself a little loop, stick the needle through, and pull. And then I'll go through a bead, go under the thread, leave yourself a little loop, and pull. And I'll go through these 3 beads here on my bottom, my little triangle here. I go through it one more time just to kind of pull that bottom together. And then once you do that, go ahead and trim your working thread so that now you have your hoop. The only thing left to do, number 1, is I got it a little bent right here, so I need to take my flat nose pliers and straighten that out. Number 2 is I'm going to use my glue, my Zap-A-Gap glue. I'm going to come right here next to where my tube starts, and I'm going to put just a little dab of glue right here on the actual pin. I'm going to take a 3mm Bicone and I'm going to slide it on, and I'm going to push it up there against my tube, and I'm going to hold it into place. Now what this is going to do is once that bead is dry, that's going to allow the tube not to slide on the actual ear hook as you wear it. So once that's dry, that'll be good to go, and then you'll be able to start wearing it. If this stem is a little long for you, you can trim it just a little bit with your cutters. It's completely up to you. I normally find that doing a row of 16 like this, that by the time you get it in your ear and you get the ear nut or the clear rubber back put on there, that it's more than it, it's plenty, so you'll be fine. So here is my completed pair of the red hoops, and so I hope you guys enjoyed the project. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope I did an adequate enough job of showing you how to do the cubic right angle weave. If you don't understand the cubic right angle weave, there are plenty of resources online that will show you how to do it. Or if you don't feel like I explained it good enough, there are plenty of resources online. Also, you may want to check out our actual written pattern, which we have on Etsy for this project. If you don't like the right angle weave in the cubic, you can do it as a flat right angle weave. And that is the pattern that will be in the kit, and that is the pattern that will be online. If you want a pattern similar to what I just did, you may want to check out the last pattern that I put online last year was called 2 peas in a pod. I didn't do a video for it, but the pattern is written in that 3D right angle weave, and it's very similar to these hoop earrings. So if you purchase the kit or the pattern for the 2 peas in a pod, then these earrings should be no problem for you. So I hope you guys enjoyed the project. Be sure and come back next week when I'm going to show you how to make a really cute pair of earrings, and I promise you that they will be a lot simpler than these. So we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.